Super Meat Boy Forever is a great game to speedrun. It is extremely satisfying, has plenty of tricks to optimize, and is pretty easy to run once you've played it. While it may still be early in the game's life, I think a lot of the core aspects of how to play this game fast have already been figured out by the community. In this 3-part tutorial series, I'm going to teach you the foundations for speedrunning Super Meat Boy Forever any percent. If you're here, I'm assuming you are familiar with the basics of the game and how it differs from the original game. These videos will be focusing on how to play the game fast. Before we get started, there is an important distinction to be made about the contents of this series. Due to the randomized nature of this game, there are two any percent categories, random seed and set seed. This series will be focusing on the random seed category, which is generally considered to be the standard way to run the game and embraces the game's random elements. Before we talk about gameplay, the first thing we'll need to do is make sure that your settings are correct. As far as key bindings go, the most important thing is just making sure that you have two different jump/punch buttons that you feel comfortable pressing at the same time, and we'll get into that very shortly. As far as audio, you just need to make sure that you have sound effects enabled. You can turn the music off if you want. In the gameplay settings, you want to make sure that you have the speedrun timer enabled, and that's the timer up on the top right on the screen. And this is it removes loads, and so it will only run when you're in the game or you're able to skip a cutscene. Now let's talk about characters. When you enter a level, you'll be able to select a character. The speedrun timer is paused during this screen, so you can make a selection without penalty. However, Meat Boy spawns into levels slightly faster than all the other characters you'll unlock over the course of an 90% run. This means that Meat Boy is optimal for all levels. By choosing Bandage Girl, you'll be losing around 2 seconds over the course of the run, and more for each death, just due to the slightly slower spawn animation. I'm now going to teach you the most important concept you need to understand about movement in this game. Normally, Meat Boy will walk slowly like this, but it's actually slightly faster to punch and dash through the air. And so you'll find that movement involves a lot of just punching, mixing in punches and dashes while you're running. However, there's a much faster way to do this. This is the first place where having two punch buttons you can press at the same time is important. I use an Xbox controller, so I'll describe it using that, but you should be able to adapt this to whatever control method you use. I rest my thumb over A and X so that I can roll over both buttons quickly. By pressing the first punch button and then immediately pressing the second punch button so that you're holding down both buttons, you dash extremely low to the ground. Pressing down at the end of the dash will return you to the ground faster, so you can do it again. This is known as quick dashing. Another important application of quick dashing is to dash off of walls quickly. By using the same inputs when on a wall, you'll immediately dash from the wall and turn around. This is the fastest way to get off a wall. At least on controller, your hand is going to get sore while you get used to this technique, so be sure to take breaks to avoid injury. The first world is Chipper Grove, and it is pretty simple in terms of mechanics. The route is also very simple. Just do the first 4 levels and then the boss. Levels 1, 2, and 3 are pretty straightforward. Just quick dash as much as you can and avoid dying. One additional thing to keep in mind is to avoid hit lag when possible. When you punch a bug, you'll freeze for about 1/4 of a second. Oftentimes, it is necessary to punch a bug, but there are many situations where you'll save time by simply avoiding it. The main skill you'll be building as you complete runs of the game is the ability to quickly recognize each chunk that may get thrown at you. Chipper 4 is the first test of this, and you'll need to be able to quickly identify each saw blade pattern to avoid dying. Many of the skips in Chipper Grove involve stalling on crumble blocks to dash through them as they disappear. Keep this in mind as you learn the levels. At the end of this video, I'll show you some places to look up skips and practice on your own. Once you've beaten the first 4 levels, you can head to the Big Slugger boss. Quickly turn around at the start and head to the bottom left, and then delay your initial hit so that Slugger gets a chance to move up. Then work your way to the top right. You'll need to time your jump to the top left right after the chainsaw comes down so that you'll be able to escape the right chainsaw. Then head to the bottom right to finish the boss. The most important place to check out first is speedrun.com/SMBF. There you'll find the full rule set as well as a leaderboard to submit runs to. You'll also find a link to the Discord, which contains all sorts of interesting information as well as helpful people. I want to point out in particular the Strat Videos channel. There you can search for a particular level and you'll find strategies and skips for that level. Back to speedrun.com, in the Resources tab, you'll find a special save file that makes each level contain every possible chunk, rather than just a few. This is incredible for practice if you play on PC. To install it, download the zip file and move the save slot file to Documents, My Games, Super Meat Boy Forever, Save, and then rename it to save slot 0, 1, or 2, depending on where you want it in your save slots. This is incredibly useful for practicing all the skips you know or just getting familiar with a certain level. If you play on PC, I highly recommend using this. One final thing for PC users is if you use LiveSplit, there's an in-game time auto-splitter available if you set your game to Super Meat Boy Forever. There are lots of options, so you can set this up however you want. Just be sure to set LiveSplit to compare against game time rather than real time. And that's it in terms of the absolute basics, the first world, and the resources available. In the next video, I will cover the more complex tricks found in the next 2 game worlds, as well as how to make on-the-fly routing decisions as each world gets more complicated. See you there.